All right. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about the 5 stages of the emotions of change, right? And you all are in one of those 5 stages. Because when you get in a business like this, you have to incorporate this in your life, right? There's got to be something that changes in your life to accommodate this business. Like you were typically watching or binging on Netflix in the evenings after you get off work. Well, now you got to get off work and get on the phone and book appointments. And then you got to run the appointments. So rather than, going to, bowling league on Tuesday night, you're running appointments after work, right? So anything that you're going to be doing with us, you have to make a change in your life. And that's the hard part, is accommodating change in your life. And as I described to you the model of the emotions that you experience going through change, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because all of you are in one of those stages with us. Okay. And I'm going to describe those to you. And, you and I know that the hardest thing is to get out your comfort zone. We kind of talked about a little bit earlier about agents getting out of their comfort zone, right? Doing something different, doing something that pushes you beyond what you're doing now. And if you don't change, then nothing will change, right? If you are a prisoner of inertia. Okay, what do we mean by that? Well, think about where you were last year, 12 months ago, compared to where you are this year. Okay, and where are you income wise? But you know what? I started where you are now. I started comfortable. I started where I was not doing anything to change my life. So every year was the same. I made the same money. I was in the same amount of debt. I was in the same amount of professional misery because I was not willing to get out of my comfort zone and make a change. So, I want you all to kind of sit back, think back to where you were 12 months ago. And if you are in the same place, well, there you go. Kind of tells you something. Now, some of you have made changes and are getting out of your comfort zone. It may not reflect yet in results, but things are changing for you. So again, I'm going to describe these stages that you're going to find yourself in. But change is hard. Our bodies, our minds, Satan wants to keep us where we are. Why would he want us to improve and grow and do some awesome things? He doesn't. So the enemy is inertia. Well, the enemy's the enemy, but also the enemy's inertia. It's is it the third law of it's that which stays still. What is it? I forgot what it's called. That which stays still remains still, like it, or that which is in motion tends to want to stay in motion. So it's the thing of staying still. Like try losing weight, right? Your body fights you from losing weight. It's the same thing, but in order to improve and grow, something's got to change. Change is required. See, to change effectively involves thought. It involves emotion, right? And you can look back in your life, whether you're learning to ride a bike, moving into a new direction, if you're going through a divorce, right? Or getting married, those are major changes, right? Or if you're moving to a new location, or you're starting a new project at home that requires, investing some money and, whatever, okay, renovating a house or, starting an exercise program. Change is hard, but until we embrace the fact that we are getting out of our comfort zone to change, we'll never move forward. Okay. Now, the change model that I'm going to talk about that hopefully you'll relate to is called, there are two psychologists, Don Kelly and Daryl Connor, that put this model together. And it's more related to organizational change. Okay. So it's like if you're trying to implement a massive ERP change in organization or accounting system, whatever. You got to change your culture to adapt to this new method of tracking cost and doing project management and so on. And so this speaks more to changing a culture, changing an organization, but it also applies to change in yourself. Now, here's the premise is if you understand this model that Don Kelly and Daryl Connor put together, and there's other ones out there, but this one is something that I totally relate to, that if you can understand the emotional cycle of change, then what it does is it normalizes the range of emotion that happens to you so that you keep from going off the rails. It's what Andy Albright talks about. You can't get too excited and happy where you want to run around the streets naked, and you can't get too depressed where you jump off a bridge, right? You got to stay emotionally in the center, no matter how great things are going or no matter how bad things are going. And here's what's interesting. I've doubled my income, but you would think I have no problems. When you double your income, your problems double. Okay. They double. The stress doubles. Okay. But the benefits are more than what the stress and the added stress and the added complexity that I have to deal with. And I'm grateful for that. Right. But it's not a lot of fun. My life is crazier now because we've done things to, make the money we're making now. And here's what's interesting about this cycle of emotional change is that it is present in everything that we do. It's something that you can apply to anything, whether it's a change in leadership in your organization, if you're in a company, or introduction of a new strategic vision. I mentioned marriage or divorce or starting a new business venture like the insurance business, right? And you guys know what I'm talking about. When you incorporate this in your life, you get attacked. Like your life was fine when you were just binging Netflix and, coming back from work tired, you go eat, and then you binge Netflix until you fall asleep at 11:30. Your wife wakes you up and say, "Hey, honey, it's time to go to bed." So you go to bed, you brush your teeth, get ready for bed, and then you sleep until the alarm goes off at 7. You have to work at 8 o'clock, and then you work from 8 to 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, you take your 15-minute coffee break, and then 10:15, you go back to work, and you're looking at the clock to take your lunch break at noon, and then you take lunch from noon to 12:45. You get back in time to your job at 1 o'clock. You go from 1 o'clock to 4:59, and then you're putting your jacket on to bolt out of work, right? And then boom, you're back at home, get dinner, then you're binging Netflix again. And that's Tuesday. So what happens? Tuesday night, you fall asleep at 11:30. Your wife wakes you up and tells you to go to bed. You go to bed. Then Wednesday comes. You wake up at 7 a.m. on Wednesday. And then you get to work at 8. And then you take your 10 o'clock coffee. You see what I'm saying? And you stay in that mode day after day, week after week, month after month. And you have little spurts and starts of changing because you get excited, like, okay, I'm going to really do it now, Alex. I'm going to get some leads and I'm going to go do it. And then what happens? You kind of flourish a little bit. You're not getting the results that you were expecting or wanting. And then you kind of tuck your tail between your legs. And this is all subtle. You do it subtly. You do it like, and then you kind of fall back in the same pattern, right? That's what happens. So let's examine that. What is the emotional cycle of change? So basically picture a V, okay? Like a V. In fact, oh man, I don't have my iPad with me. Nothing like pictures, right? Pictures speak to you. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like. And this here is the emotional stage stages. Okay. This is time. So I can put a marker. So if you look at this middle, ooh, that's a good marker. Okay. So above this line is optimism. Below the line is pessimism. Did I spell that right? Yeah, I think so. Right. And so here's stage one. What is stage one called? Stage one is called uninformed optimism. Okay, I'm going to go into detail what this is. So just basically stage one, you see the opportunity, you see the I'm looking at my the camera that's not working, so I can probably look up this way. Hey, you can see my hair. Anyway, uninformed optimism. So what is uninformed optimism? Uninformed optimism is where you're so excited about the insurance business, man. You saw the plan, you saw you could make $500 a sale, and it's like, oh man, I could do 5 of these a week, right? I'm going to be rich, $2,500 a week commissions, and it's uninformed optimism. You're excited about it. You see some vision for yourself, right? And it's not unfounded, because you hear stories of making wood, rags to riches stories of all these people that have done it, and you're measuring yourself against them, thinking, they're no better than me. I could do this too. And you're just jacked up that you finally see a vision that you can get yourself out of your situation, right? Lead program, insurance, I could do this. I could do this. And it's uninformed because you've never done it. Or maybe you sort of did it, but you didn't really do it, but now you think you can. Uninformed optimism, okay? Again, I'm going to go into more detail. Then stage 2 hits, right? All of a sudden, you're starting to call leads, and it's harder than you thought it was going to be. So this is the stage down here. Stage 2, okay, is called informed pessimism. What is informed pessimism? Informed pessimism is now you're starting to get the reality of the situation. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Right? And then all the doubts starts creeping into your mind. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, can I really do this business? So now you're getting a dose of reality. Okay. How many of you have been there? Some of you are in there right now. Or maybe you're in stage 3. So this is stage 3. What's stage 3? This is called the Valley of Despair. How many of you have been there? The Valley of Despair. Man, it's not fun. Like you are ready to give up. You are wondering, maybe this is all the Christians out there. This is where I get from the Christians. Maybe God is telling me I shouldn't do this because it's so hard. Oh my gosh. If the apostles thought that way, man, anyhow, I'm not going to go there. Valley of Despair. You are like questioning everything about yourself. You're going, I'm not cut out for this. This is really not for me. Like getting rejected from getting yelled at from a 68-year-old is just, I can't take it. I can't take it. It's so hard. You're just like, Valley of Despair. I've been there. Look, I've been through all these stages, and you are in one of these stages. Okay. Now, here's what happens. I'm probably going into more detail I want to, but here's what happens in stage 3 is this. So let's, this is why we have this timeline thing here. Here's what happens is you decide to quit, right? You quit. Okay. And then you go, what happens is you see something else, a multi-level program that you're just fired up about, or some other thing. So you quit when it's hard here in insurance. Guess what? You go back to uninformed optimism with the next deal, right? MLMers hop from deal to deal to deal. The smart MLMers start the deal early. They grow their groups and then they quit at the right time when it's at its peak, and they move to another deal where they can grow it. The dumb MLMers are the ones that get in after the peak. They get in right before it starts going downhill, and then they find out it's not working, and they go to the next one, except the next one they got into, it was already going downhill, right? And anyway. So you have to confront the reality that you're going to have to go through this cycle again. And here's the cycle of losers, is that you go with something else, and then you go back down to the valley of despair. Then you do something else, you go back to stage one, down the valley of despair. How many of you all been there? How many of you all know what I'm talking about? How many people get married? They go through the stage in marriage where it's uninformed optimism. Oh, I found my partner for life. Then things get hard. Then you go to the valley of despair and you just think, oh, maybe she wasn't for me. This is just not working. And then you quit the marriage. And then you find the next honey that you think you're going to create your, life. All of a sudden you go through and then you quit again at stage 3. How many of you know people that have been married like 3, 4, 5 times, right? How many of you know MLMers have been on 5 MLMs in their career of MLM? No. But here's the thing. If you can understand stage 3 for what it is and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, what happens is if you continue to work and continue to keep your mind right, then you get to stage 4. Whoops, I put it in the wrong side. So this stage, it's right there. Stage 4 is right here, and this is called stage 4. This is called informed optimism. Optimism. What's informed optimism? Informed optimism is when you're starting to make some sales. You're starting to feel good that some of these people are hugging you because they're glad you came in their door. And you're still going through crap. You're starting to figure it out. You're getting little wins. Little things are starting to, uplift you. And you go to another function, right? The best time to attend a function is when you're in this stage right here. That's why we have 4 of them a year. Because by the end of a quarter, you might be right here, and then a function gets you back on track going up this way. But some of you will backtrack and go back down. Okay, if you're not continuing to work and get better, you get the lazies happening to you. But consistent work and getting coaching and getting around the right people and getting your mind right and thinking positive will start moving you up here to stage 4, informed optimism. And so this is where you start creating momentum in your mindset and attitude that things are really like, you start feeling like, you know what, I think I could really do this. You make one sale and you feel like, if I can make 1, I can make 2. If I can make 2, I can make 4. If I can make 4 sales, I can make 8, right? You start getting this more competent. So there's a skill level that catches up, right? But there's no way you can develop skill until you work and continue to go through the crap in order to develop the skill to start seeing results. You start moving up to stage 4. And then finally, the last stage, right, is stage 5. Stage 5. Stage 5 is success and fulfillment. Okay? Success and fulfillment. And we're at different stages with different parts of the business. But overall, in general, when you add everything up and your experience with the insurance business is that you're like moving through here. So why is this important? This is important because if you know what's coming, if you know what's coming, then you know how to handle it, right? If you know what's coming, you know how to handle it. Okay. So let's kind of delve into it a little bit more in depth. Um, Now, the uninformed optimism, the stage one, you and I know it's the most exciting part. It's what got you in. It's the romance before you get married. It's you're swept off your feet with the romance, and you love the romance, and it's because you haven't really experienced any of the cost involved of a marriage, right? Everything costs, man. There's a cost to everything. See, what you have to realize, if you can get to the other side to stage 5, is that the cost is worth it. But you don't know if the cost is worth it if you stay in stage 1 and 2 and 3, right? So you've got a lot of positive emotions when you get in. You see the benefits of the change that you want to put in your life, but you haven't seen the downside yet. And you're imagining. Remember, you got in this thing, you're just like imagining, if I can make 2,000 a week on 20 hours, 25 hours, 30 hours, my life will change. And you start thinking about what that world looks like, what that feels like. You start putting yourself and immersing yourself in that situation, but you have no idea what it cost, right? And so informed pessimism, you go to stage 2, this part doesn't last long. Reality starts sinking in, right? Your positive emotions turn into negative, and you start getting pessimistic about whether or not you can do it, or does the business work. This is what cracks me up, is that some people look at other people doing this and they still don't think the business works. Those are people that don't take responsibility for their own failures. And so they think it's the problem's the system. It's not me, right? They go into blame modes, blaming everything else. But there's this massive shift to a negative emotional state in informed pessimism. The benefits don't even seem real. They're a veil. They're a dream. There's just, it's not happening soon enough. But the costs start mounting up. The lead costs, all the things you're doing, all the time you're spending. How many times have you thought, I am spending so much time doing this, but I'm getting nothing out of it? See, because you're thinking about it like an employee. You put your time in. Alex, I didn't get paid on my time. It's like, dude, you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs know that they pay the price first before they get the benefits, right? But obviously, you still think like an employee. And in informed pessimism, you're just wondering, is this change worth it? Because I'm not seeing the benefits. And then this is where you start looking for reasons to quit, to abandon the effort of what you're doing, of getting out of your comfort zone, right? And then this is where it gets worse. The valley of despair, the lowest point of the cycle. And this is where, like I mentioned, people give up. The pain of change is felt, and the benefits just seem so far away and unimportant. And what you're going to feel like is you want to end the pain. And the easiest way to end the pain of change is to quit and go back to what you were doing before, because it didn't hurt as much, even though you were still wallowing in mediocrity. It's easier, feels better to wallow in mediocrity than to try to go for a superior life, right? But if you're able to persevere, right, and you know why you were making this change in your life in the first place, and you continue hold on to the compelling vision of the future of what you want to achieve, then again, controlling your mindset, then you can start moving into informed optimism. Okay. The possibility of success increases. You're starting to get more in the positive emotional zone. The benefits of everything you're doing is starting to bear fruit. You're starting to see little glimpses, as I mentioned, And the key here is not to stop, but it's to keep going. It's to double down, to keep piling on so that you can keep the momentum going to finally the stage 5, the final stage. And your new behaviors, new habits, the new life that you've worked so hard to create, you're continuing to do that and you're experiencing all the benefits. And what's crazy about the benefits when you get to stage 5, and you'll hear a lot of people, a lot of us that have gone to the other stage 5 of this business, is once you realize the benefits, you will tell, I promise you, you will tell yourself, I should have worked twice as hard to get here. I would have done more if I knew how good it was. It's so weird. I would have worked harder. I would have gone through more pain, but you don't know that until you finally get on the other side of the stage 5 success and fulfillment. Okay. So the question is, now that you know that you're in one of these cycles, now that you know what this is and we've mapped it out for you and you know where you are right now, in what stage you're in, right? How do you deal with it? How do you deal with those? So let's give you some tips here on how to deal with whatever stage you're in. So uninformed optimism. It's easy to deal with this stage because you're still optimistic. But here's what you need to do, because you know what's coming, is you need to totally write down and journal or put a list of the benefits that you want from making this change. And I don't mean just the list of, I want to make 2,000 a week or 5,000 a week. It's not that. It's what you would do. What are the benefits of making that kind of money? I'm going to be able to travel with my family. I'm going to spend more time with my family. You have to make it emotional, not just logical, not that you've got 250,000 in the bank account. I tell you what, man, when you look at what's in your bank, you've got that much money in your bank account, Armageddon could come, but you'd be ready for it. It's insanity. Anyway, like I said, you'd work twice as hard if you knew the benefit. But here, you need to write it down. You need to write down the emotional things that you expect to achieve. What feeds your emotions? Okay, it can be logical, but it needs to be emotional too. Make sure you write those down and make those clear. It's really your why. Your why did you get in this thing? And you need to make a list. You need to do that, because when you start going into informed pessimism, you need to hold on to this list. You need to revisit this list, and you need to continue to focus on what you were trying to achieve. See, when you're focused on the bumps on the road and you're looking down at the obstacles, you lose sight of the goal in front of you. But when you focus on the goal in front of you, the little bumps are not mountains. They're little speed bumps along the way that you just, go over, right? You know how it is. If you go over a speed bump slow, you go boom, boom. It's just, but if you go just fast enough, it's like a bump. You just kind of go through it, right? And so, but when you focus on it, it's this huge thing. Okay. So this is why you need to make that list. And when you're in the informed pessimism and things start going to hell, you focus on the list that you made when you were excited. Then here's also what you do. You need to call me. You need to call your mentor. When you're feeling this, you need to call. I don't care if it's 10 times a day. You need to call. You need to go to the TWC. You need to attend the Zoom calls. You need to attend our base shop calls and look at the leaderboard. Even though you're not on it, it gives you hope that these other people are doing it. You can do it too. You need to surround yourself around people that are in stage 4 and 5. If you hang around the people around that are in stage 4 and 5, instead of hanging around people in stage 2 and 3, you know what I mean? Like misery loves company. You cannot hang with the people that are stage 2 and 3, because they're going to be comfortable staying there, and then they're going to quit, and they're going to take you with them. You got to hang around the people that are in stage 4 and 5. And by hanging around our meetings and our national conferences, you're going to get around these people, right? It gives you hope. And that's what you need. You need hope when you're informed pessimism. Okay. And it also helps you from getting out of the self-sabotaging activities. You know what happens when you start doing things that are detrimental to you, and you may know it consciously, but what's worse is if you do it subconsciously and you don't recognize that you're doing it. That's scary, right? Some people like to journal, like to write down their feelings and what they're going through just to get off their chest, But here's the thing. The more you can verbalize it to someone who cares about you and someone who's willing to lift you up, your doubts and your fears, right? The more they can stop you from articulating your doubts and fears. It's like you say it once and then shut up already. Don't articulate it again. Okay. Anyway, so so now you're in the valley of despair. Okay. And this is the hardest part. And this is the most essential pinnacle in your career, in anything that you do, whether it's a marriage, whether it's this business. And this is where a fundamental shift can happen if you're willing to keep your hope alive enough that that when you get where you want to go, although it's not always how you pictured it, little glimmer of hope can happen when you're in the valley of despair. But here's the beautiful thing about being in the valley of despair, because it's the lowest point you will ever be in your marriage, in your business, in your faith life. It's the lowest point you'll ever be, right? Because you know what you're dealing with now. You know that when you call leads, you know what to expect. You know that people are going to yell at you, but you've got to keep dialing to the next one until you could book that next appointment. See, it becomes the devil that you know. When you're doing the backsliding down on the mentality from optimism to pessimism, you don't know the devil in front of you. But once you identify the devil in front of you, then you know what you're dealing with, right? And this is, again, where you need to lean on your mentors who have been through what you've been through, right? Communication is key here. You need to communicate to your upline, your growing upline that will get you out of the funk, right? But you got to embrace it for what it is and understand for what it is, because it is essential that you go through this in order to get to the other side. Everyone goes through it in order to get to the other side, right? And here's the key. You have to keep working. Even if it doesn't feel good, even if you don't see an end in sight, even if you don't see any glimmer of hope, you got to keep working, because by working and staying consistent, you will control your emotions. And that's the only way to get out of it, is you just continue to work and continue to get mentorship, continue to communicate and continue to work. You cannot wait until your attitude is optimistic, because it'll never happen. You have to work even though your attitude sucks. If you can work while your attitude sucks, guess what happens? You will start experiencing optimism, because you're going to start experiencing results. And the other way you can get results is if you start and keep working, right? And this is where you cross over to getting into the stage 4 of optimism, okay? So I'm going to share this with you. And I want you to really listen to this, because this video has so many subtleties in it. And so you just really got to listen to it. I'm going to send it out to you so you can watch it. You're going to have to watch it like 2 or 3 times like I did. But the stuff this woman talks about will really totally, it's related but not related, but it's an important part of mindset attitude. So I want to share.
Hi, everyone. Gosh, I wish I could dance, but I can't, and you really don't want me to. So instead, I thought I would talk a little today about how people think. I'm fascinated by this question. I'm a social psychologist, which basically means I'm a professional people watcher. So this is what I do. I try to figure out how humans think and how we might be able to think better. And here's something I noticed a few years ago about how I seem to think. Here's a typical week in my life, which usually seems to revolve entirely around publishing papers. So here I am in the maximum of my artistic abilities as a stick figure, going along at baseline, and a paper gets accepted. I get this rush, this blip of happiness, and then I'm back to baseline by about lunchtime. A few days later, a paper might get rejected, and that feels pretty awful. And I wait for that blip to end, but somehow I just can't stop thinking about it. And here's the craziest part. Even if another paper gets accepted the next day, well, that's nice, but somehow I can't get that pesky rejection out of my head. So what is going on here? Why does a failure seem to stick in our minds so much longer than a success? Well, together with my colleague Amber Boydston in the political science department, I started thinking about this question of, do our minds get stuck in the negatives? We all know intuitively that there are different ways of thinking about things. The same glass, the saying goes, can be seen as half full or half empty. And there's a lot of research in the social sciences showing that depending on how you describe the glass to people, as half full or half empty, it changes how they feel about it. So if you describe the glass as half full, this is called a gain frame because you're focusing on what's gained, then people like it. But if you describe the same glass as half empty, a loss frame, then people don't like it. But we wondered, what happens when you try to switch from thinking about it one way to thinking about it another way? Can people shift back and forth, or do they get stuck in one way of thinking about it? Does one of these labels, in other words, tend to stick more in the mind? Well, to investigate this question, we conducted a simple experiment. We told participants in our experiment about a new surgical procedure, and we randomly assigned them to one of two conditions. For participants in the first condition, the first group, we described the surgical procedure in terms of gains. We said it had a 70% success rate. And for participants in the second group, we described the procedure in terms of losses. We said it had a 30% failure rate. So it's the exact same procedure. We're just focusing people's attention on the part of the glass that's full or the part of the glass that's empty. Perhaps unsurprisingly, people like the procedure when it's described as having a 70% success rate, and they don't like it when it's described as having a 30% failure rate. But then we added a twist. We told participants in the first group, you could think of this as a 30% failure rate. And now they don't like it anymore. They've changed their minds. And we told participants in the second group, you could think of this as a 70% success rate, but unlike the first group, they stuck with their initial opinion. They seemed to be stuck in the initial loss frame that they saw at the beginning of the study. We conducted another experiment. This time we told participants about the current governor of an important state who is running for re-election against his opponent. We again had two groups of participants, and we described the current governor's track record to them in one of two ways. We said that when the current governor took office, statewide budget cuts were expected to affect about 10,000 jobs. And then half the participants read that under the current governor's leadership, 40% of these jobs had been saved. And they like the current governor. They think he's doing a great job. The rest of the participants read that under the current governor's leadership, 60% of these jobs had been lost. And they don't like the current governor. They think he's doing a terrible job. But then, once more, we added a twist. For participants in the first group, we reframed the information in terms of losses. And now they didn't like the current governor anymore. And for participants in the second group, we reframed the information in terms of gains. But just like in the first study, this didn't seem to matter. People in this group still didn't like the current governor. So notice what this means. Once the loss frame gets in there, it sticks. People can't go back to thinking about jobs saved once they've thought about jobs lost. So in both of these scenarios, actually, the current governor gets ousted in favor of his opponent. Well, at this point, we were getting curious. Why does this happen? Could it be that it's actually mentally harder for people to convert from losses to gains than it is for them to go from gains to losses? So we conducted a third study to test how easily people could convert from one frame to another. This time, we told participants, imagine there's been an outbreak of an unusual disease and 600 lives are at stake. And we asked participants in one group, if 100 lives are saved, how many will be lost? And we asked participants in the other group, if 100 lives are lost, how many will be saved? So everyone just has to calculate 600 minus 100 and come up with the answer of 500. But whereas people in one group have to convert from gains to losses in order to do that, people in the second group have to convert from losses to gains. We timed how long it took them to solve this simple math problem. And what we found was that when people had to convert from gains to losses, they could solve the problem quite quickly. It took them about 7 seconds on average. But when they had to convert from losses to gains, well, now it took them far longer, almost 11 seconds. So this suggests that once we think about something as a loss, that way of thinking about it tends to stick in our heads and to resist our attempts to change it. What I take away from this research and from related research is that our view of the world has a fundamental tendency to tilt toward the negative. It's pretty easy to go from good to bad, but far harder to shift from bad to good. We literally have to work harder to see the upside of things. And this matters. So think about the economy. Here's economic well-being from 2007 to 2010. And you can see it tanked, just like we all remember. And then by late 2010, it had recovered by most objective measures. But here's consumer confidence over the same time period. You can see it tanks right along with the economy, but then it seems to get stuck. Instead of rebounding with the economy itself, consumers seem to be psychologically stuck back there in the recession. So oddly then, it may take more effort to change our minds about how the economy is doing than to change the economy itself. On a more personal level, what this research means to me is that you have to work to see the upside. Literally, this takes work. This takes effort. And you can practice this. You can train your mind to do this better. There's research out of UC Davis showing that just writing for a few minutes each day about things that you're grateful for can dramatically boost your happiness and well-being and even your health. We can also rehearse good news and share it with others. We tend to think, right, that misery loves company, that venting will help get rid of our negative emotions, that we'll feel better if we just talk about how terrible our day was. And so we talk, and we talk, and we talk about the boss who's driving us crazy, and the friend who never called us back, and the meeting at work where every little thing that could go wrong did. But we forget to talk about the good stuff. And yet that's exactly where our minds need the most practice. So my husband, who has this disconcerting habit of listening to what I say other people should do and then pointing out that, technically speaking, I'm a person too, has taken to listening to me for about 2 minutes on days when I come home all grumpy and complaining about everything. And he listens and he says, okay, but what happened today that was good? And so I tell him about the student who came up to me after class with this really interesting, insightful question. And I tell him about the friend who emailed me out of the blue this morning just to say hello. And somewhere in the telling, I start to smile. And I start to think that maybe my day was pretty decent after all. I think we can also work in our communities to focus on the upside. We can be more aware that bad tends to stick. One mean comment can stick with somebody all day, all week even. And bad tends to propagate itself, right? Somebody snaps at you and you snap back, and you snap at the next guy too. But what if the next time somebody snapped at you, you forgave them? What if the next time you had a really grumpy waitress, you left her an extra large tip? Our minds may be built to look for negative information and to hold on to it. But we can also retrain our minds if we put some effort into it and start to see that the glass may be a little more full than we initially thought. Thank you.
Wow, pretty amazing, huh? When you think about forcing yourself to think about the positives, the gratefulness, the little things, the blessings, right? You always say count your blessings. This study really proves that that is true. Isn't it amazing how we can get stuck in the glass is half empty mode, and it's harder to go from there to the glass half full? You guys know what I'm talking about. And this speaks to the stages, stage 2 and 3. See, stage 2 and 3 can put you in a spiral downhill where you quit, right? But when you start looking and remembering why you started, when you remember why you got in, you're trying to remember the things that you are hopeful about, then, and you continue to work, like she said, work, W-O-R-K, a 4-letter word, man. You continue to work, then the benefits are definitely going to be on the other side. And it's a tremendous thing and a tremendous blessing, that you can achieve. And so anyway, let me, my Zoom call is acting all, tell you what, this is like really laggy.
I have to comment something. I do also follow mindset, Bob Proctor. Everything about mindset. I think bulletproof morning routine, it really sets the day because that's how the way you're gonna feel. I like to do spiritual and physically in spiritual, physical, and intellectual. So it either can you move your body, flex, then you can do your own beliefs or mindfulness, and then you can do reading. So if you touch those three things, you're gonna have a good mindset because business is mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Body, mind, and spirit, right? It's that mentality. So, so getting to stage 4, getting into informed optimism. So when you're in the informed optimism, to continue that uphill climb to optimism, it's using affirmations. We talk about affirmations all the time, positive affirmations to keep your mind right. Starting the day out, focus on positive energy. Another thing too, man, is that also can be helpful when you're in stage 4 is to help people out of stage 3, right? You yourself encourage and uplift other people, both by your example, your attitude and mindset. That's why when you make a sale and you're fired up about it, it's like, I want you to post it on Slack because it's not braggadocious. It's helping the people in stage 2 and 3 hold on to hope because you just made this lead work, right? You made a sale. Like, post it, like, share the good feeling because you can help other people get there too. Remember, we're all trying to reach down and help people back up. Here now, you are in stage 4 or 5. Your job is to help the people in 2 and 3. You know what I'm saying? And inspiring other people by what you do, what you say, and encouraging and uplifting people with a text message can make all the difference in the world, from them quitting at stage 3, the valley of despair, and making one more dial, ordering one more set of leads to make a sale and get them out of there. Right. So, so that is really, in a nutshell, this whole idea of the emotional stages. And now that you know what they are, now you know how to deal with them. Okay. And again, man, just focus on the positive through work. You earn it by work, dialing. And you have to be relentless at it. So you can earn the attitude and the mindset that you're looking for, because once you get motivated, like self-motivated because of the work you're doing, you can stay motivated. And here's the deal. You will learn how to handle those valleys in your life by going through it. You don't learn it by theoretically, having these actions. You learn it by going through it, so that when you go through it again, you're equipped. You've got the tools to manage the valley of despair, the tools to manage informed pessimism, right? So anyway, hope that helped you guys. I love that video. I'll send that out to y'all so you can check it out. And anyway, does anyone have any questions, comments, suggestions?
Real quick, Alex, sometimes you can go through all those stages in the same day
Yeah.
when you're out there calling on people.
I know, man. And it's again, like Andy says, you got to stay in the middle, man. You got to stay right in the middle. That's so true. It can be a very emotional game, and it's not a good thing to have large swings. I mean, people call that bipolar. If you swing all the way through, you just have to remember you got to stay steady and control those emotions. Anyway, appreciate y'all. Thank you guys for being on. I hope this helped. And let's rock and roll, man.